You probably think you're making this like really sensible, pragmatic choice buying the 2026 Subaru Forester, right up until the dashboard lights up like a Christmas tree.
Oh, yeah.
And then your mechanic just hands you a $7,000 bill for a completely catastrophic transmission failure. Because if you haven't been meticulously flushing that continuously variable transmission fluid, I mean, the internal metal belt just slips. It scores the pulleys, and the whole unit basically shreds itself from the inside out.
Right. And if you're looking at the 2026 Hyundai Tucson's lower price tag, thinking, you've totally outsmarted the car market, you are stepping right into a totally different kind of trap.
A financial one, mostly.
Exactly. I mean, you might dodge the transmission grenade, sure, but the literal second you sign the paperwork, you trigger this massive depreciation penalty. And that's before the aggressively high insurance premium even hits your inbox.
Look, we're here to protect your money. And honestly, your sanity. So we are relentlessly pitting the 2026 Hyundai Tucson, both the gas and hybrid versions, against the 2026 Subaru Forester gas and hybrid.
Because, we really need to figure out which of these crossovers is actually a smart buy. And more importantly, which trims are just these carefully engineered dealer traps.
Yeah.
Things designed to just drain your wallet over a, 72-month loan.
Well, before we even pop the hoods on these things, let's just look at what happens the minute you drive off the lot. Yeah. Because the abandonment rate on these vehicles in the first year, it tells a really dark story.
Yeah, it really does.
It's all about this friction between modern car design and actual consumer reality. Like, take the Tucson. Hyundai just completely abandoned physical analog buttons.
They really did.
They went all in on this screen-heavy, capacitive touch environment.
Which, okay, so what does that actually mean financially? Why are owners dumping them so fast?
Because capacitive touch means a completely flat, glowing black panel with, absolutely zero tactile feedback.
Right.
So older drivers, or really anyone tech-resistant, they buy this car after a rushed 20-minute test drive. And the dealer conveniently set the climate control for them, right?
Oh, always. They always set it up perfectly.
Exactly. So a week later, they're doing 65 on the highway, blindly jabbing at this smooth piece of plastic, just trying to turn on the defroster. I mean, the learning curve for the driver profiles and the digital mirroring is so infuriating that people literally trade the car back in within months.
And that exact frustration leads to an absolute financial bloodbath.
Yeah.
Because trading in a Tucson that early, you're eating a brutal depreciation penalty.
It's bad.
Over 5 years, the Tucson only retains about 50 to 55% of its original value. I mean, it drops like an absolute stone the second the tires touch public pavement.
Yeah.
If you put nothing down, you are instantly underwater on that loan.
Even with, Hyundai lowering the entry price to try and entice buyers.
Yeah, even then, look, the base SE front-wheel drive has an MSRP of $31,050, and buyers are getting them for an average of about $30,050.
So $1,000 off.
Right, so you get $1,000 off up front from the dealer, but that discount does not save you from the resale slaughter when the car just loses almost half its worth.
Wow.
Now, the Forester is a totally different beast on the used market. It holds its value significantly better, retaining around 60%. But, and this is a big but, Subaru weaponizes that strong resale reputation by setting this massive financial trap right at the entry level.
Oh, you mean the base trim. Yeah, it's an insulting bait and switch.
Exactly. At $31,445 MSRP, the base Forester is stripped of all the actual hardware that makes a Subaru worth buying in the first place. You think you're getting this rugged mountain conqueror on a budget.
But instead, you just get a tall, under-equipped station wagon. I mean, the base trim completely lacks the dual-function X mode, and it lacks hill descent control.
So break that down for someone staring at the window sticker. Like, what is X mode actually doing mechanically?
Well, X mode is this electronic brain that manages traction in slippery conditions. So it actively adjusts the engine throttle input, it alters the transmission shift points, and it aggressively pulses the brakes on individual spinning wheels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it routes power only to the tires that actually have grip. Without that software, I mean, the Forester is just not an off-roader. And add in the fact that buyers who step down from the older high-performance Forester XT turbo models, they experience immediate remorse.
Because of the passing power.
Yes. The non-turbo-based Forester has incredibly sluggish highway passing power.
So you load that cabin up with luggage, put one of those aerodynamic drag boxes on the roof, and try to pass a semi-truck on a steep mountain incline.
You will absolutely be praying for momentum. It's rough. Buying a base Forester to save a couple of grand is, it's like buying a modern smartphone that can only make landline calls. Like, what is the actual point of carrying it around?
There isn't one. It's a terrible financial miscalculation. So, okay, say you stubbornly hold on to either car and you survive that first year without trading it in. That's when the long-term mechanic reality really sets in.
Right.
We're talking about the real cost of ownership here. Which of these engine blocks is actually going to make it to 200,000 miles without just bankrupting the owner?
Well, looking under the hood, the standard gas Tucson actually delivers a bit of an engineering masterclass for longevity.
Really?
Yeah, it uses a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter engine with a dual-fuel injection system. It utilizes both gasoline direct injection and multi-port injection.
Okay, translate that out of mechanic speak. Why does a buyer actually care about two different injection systems?
Because it prevents engine strangulation. So in a standard direct injection engine, fuel is sprayed directly into the combustion chamber, right?
Right.
That means the intake valves stay completely dry. And over time, this sticky carbon buildup just bakes onto those valves from the recycled exhaust gases. It literally chokes the engine's airflow.
Got
But by also having multi-port injection, the Tucson sprays gasoline right across the back of the intake valves. It essentially washes them clean every single time you drive. Plus, it uses a dry timing chain and a real traditional 8-speed automatic transmission. No slipping CVT belts to worry about.
Okay, that sounds incredibly durable. But you have to be highly suspicious of the Tucson hybrid. I mean, the front-wheel drive base hybrid looks super tempting at $32,550, especially since the EPA targets it at 38 miles per gallon.
Yeah, but the mechanic reality there is much different.
Drastically different. Owners are frequently dipping down to 30 or 32 miles per gallon in real-world driving. And there's this massive hidden maintenance cost attached to that hybrid powertrain.
Well, yeah, because the Tucson hybrid doesn't use that naturally aspirated engine. It uses a 1.6-liter turbocharged engine, and a turbocharger is a serious high-stress wear item.
Huge wear item.
It's a turbine spinning at over 100,000 revolutions per minute, dealing with massive exhaust heat. Because of that extreme thermal stress, you were likely looking at a mandatory turbo replacement somewhere between 120,000 and 150,000 miles.
A replacement that will completely wipe out any microscopic savings you clawed back on gas over those years.
Exactly. Just totally gone. Now contrast that with the Forester's 2.5-liter boxer engine. Subaru uses pure gasoline direct injection. There is zero fuel washing over the back of those intake valves.
Okay, so we're right back to the carbon buildup problem. What's the financial damage for ignoring that on the Forester?
You absolutely must pay a mechanic for walnut blasting.
Walnut blasting?
Yeah, they literally use crushed walnut shells blown under high pressure to physically blast the baked-on carbon off the valves. You have to do this every 60,000, 80,000 miles. If you don't, your engine will idle rough, misfire, and just straight up fail state emissions test. Furthermore, it's a boxer engine, meaning the cylinders sit horizontally instead of vertically.
Right, and I know enthusiasts love that for handling because, it lowers the vehicle's center of gravity. But from a financial perspective, that horizontal engine layout is a massive liability.
Yes, it makes a mountain road slightly more fun, sure, but it introduces a fatal mechanic flaw. When you shut the engine off, gravity naturally pulls the residual hot oil down. It pulls on the lower side of those horizontal cylinder walls. So the top half of the cylinder is left bone dry for your next cold start.
Oh, that's not good.
No. Metal-on-metal scraping occurs in those first few critical seconds of engine turnover.
Which means if you skip your strict 5,000-mile synthetic oil changes, you're going to burn those piston rings to absolute dust, and then you are staring at a full engine rebuild.
Yep.
But honestly, that isn't even the ultimate financial threat hanging over the Forester buyer.
You're talking about the CVT.
Oh, absolutely. The CVT Subaru dealerships just love to sell this myth of lifetime transmission fluid, and buying into that is literal financial suicide. Ignoring your CVT fluid isn't just a maintenance oversight. It's like taking out a high-interest payday loan where the transmission itself acts as the collection agency.
Because a traditional automatic transmission, like in the gas Tucson, uses physical gears. But a CVT relies on a metal chain dragging aggressively between two adjustable metal cones. It generates immense heat and friction.
Right.
Over time, the fluid breaks down and loses its protective viscosity. So if you do not force the dealer to exchange that CVT fluid every 30,000 to 60,000 miles, the metal belt slips against the cones, scores the surface, and destroys the entire unit.
And replacing a Subaru CVT will run you anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000.
Insane.
It is a catastrophic bill. But honestly, I have to ask you, Does the Tucson's brilliant dual-injection engine reliability even matter if the car is sitting for 3 months in a body shop?
You're talking about the daily annoyances and the corporate cost-cutting, the stuff that turns these cars into liabilities outside of the engine bay.
Yeah, because the Tucson has a very dark, very expensive cloud following it. The whole Kia boys theft legacy. Hyundai and Kia vehicles were targeted heavily on social media for lacking basic engine immobilizers in older models.
The irony there is the 2026 Tucson models
Yeah.
all have standard immobilizers.
Yeah.
And push-button starts. You literally cannot steal them with a USB cable anymore. The software loophole is fully closed.
Sure, but thieves are not exactly doing rigorous background research on model years before they strike, right? They see the slanted H badge on the grille and they immediately smash the glass and rip apart the steering column just to try.
Just to see if it works.
Right. And because of that lingering reputation, insurance premiums for the Tucson are aggressively hiked right out of the gate. Some major insurers are literally restricting policies entirely if you happen to live in certain zip codes of major cities. You could buy the car, sign the paperwork, and then find out nobody will insure it for under $300 a month.
And God forbid you do get into a minor fender bender in one of these. Because repairing the modern Tucson costs an absolute fortune.
Oh, tell me about it. Just replacing a cracked windshield from a rogue highway pebble is over $840 out of pocket.
Because it's not the glass itself that costs so much. It's the mandatory, highly expensive digital recalibrations for the advanced safety cameras mounted behind the rearview mirror.
Right.
If a glass shop replaces the windshield and doesn't laser align those cameras perfectly, your automatic emergency braking might just trigger randomly on the highway. Or worse, not trigger at all when you actually need it. On top of that, the power liftgate struts on the Tucson are notorious for losing hydraulic pressure and failing prematurely.
So you're basically paying luxury tier repair prices to maintain a mainstream crossover. But look, do not think the Forester gets a pass here, because Subaru has its own special flavor of daily extortion.
Oh yeah, the daily cabin experience in the Forester can be downright infuriating in the winter. They put this giant 11.6-inch vertical Starlink screen right in the center console.
Oh, that screen.
If it's below freezing outside, the internal processor is so incredibly slow it can take up to 3 minutes just to boot up.
Imagine sitting freezing in your driveway, frantically tapping a totally black screen, completely unable to turn on your climate control or defroster because the software is literally frozen.
When you finally do get the system to respond and turn on the heated seats, the heating elements are incredibly weak.
Barely warm.
It got so universally mocked by owners that Subaru actually had to issue a technical service bulletin just to reprogram the software, basically begging the system to let the seats get past 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
But the absolute peak of corporate greed is what these companies charge you just to use the hardware already installed in your own car. Subaru and Hyundai will gladly lock features behind software paywalls.
Like remote start. It used to be a simple radio button on the key fob. Now, of course, it's an app tied to your phone.
Right. And Hyundai actually respects the buyer here, surprisingly. They give the original Tucson owner Blue Link Plus for free for the entire life of the vehicle. You can start your car from your phone, check the locks, set the climate control without a monthly shakedown. Subaru, on the other hand, actively extorts you.
How much are they charging for basic functionality now?
Well, after the initial trial period ends, Subaru demands $14.90 every single month for their Starlink Security Plus package.
You kidding?
Nope. If you do not pay the ransom, you lose your remote start completely. You are literally paying an ongoing subscription just to turn on the car sitting in your own driveway.
And see, Subaru will aggressively charge you $14 a month for app security, but that software paywall completely distracts you from a massive hardware vulnerability sitting right on the front bumper. Modern thieves don't care about your Starlink subscription. Both the Tucson and the Forester are incredibly vulnerable to keyless RF relay attacks.
Okay, so what does that mean for the owner sleeping inside their house?
It means thieves walk up to your front door with an antenna, they amplify the signal from your key fob sitting on the kitchen counter, and they bounce it to a receiver next to the car. The car thinks the key is right there, unlocks the doors, and lets them start the engine.
Scary.
And if you keep your keys in a Faraday cage to block the signal, they just go for the physical hardware.
The CAN bus injection attacks?
Exactly. Modern cars are essentially just computer networks on wheels. The internal components blindly trust signals from the central network. So a thief can literally pry off an external headlight assembly or a blind spot radar sensor on the rear bumper, access the exposed wiring harness, and plug a rogue device directly into the car's controller area network bus.
Just straight into the brain.
Yeah, they inject malicious code that mimics the key fob. It forces the electronic doors to unlock and overrides the engine immobilizer entirely. They drive away in 60 seconds flat, no broken glass required.
So both vehicles are sitting ducks for hackers. But what about actual crash tests? Both brands constantly brag about being IIHS top safety pick plus winners, mostly to justify their high loan payments.
Well, they are winners, but when you look at the raw physical data beneath the shiny awards, the Tucson has a massive glaring flaw that Hyundai really doesn't want you looking at. In the whiplash prevention evaluations, the Tucson scored poor rating.
Wait, poor? That is the absolute lowest grade the IIHS gives. How does a modern family car fail that badly?
It racked up 10 separate demerits in rear impact sled tests. The physical design of the seat and head restraint failed to support the dummy. The telemetry metrics showed aggressive G-forces violently snapping the neck and spine during a simulated rear-end collision.
Man, that is a severe compromise for a vehicle aimed directly at families putting their kids in the back seat. The Forester performs much better in that regard, right?
Yeah, significantly better. The Forester's physical design is actually incredibly practical. The outward visibility is unmatched because of the tall greenhouse glass, which practically eliminates blind spots. Plus, the rear doors open to nearly 90 degrees.
Oh, that's huge. If you've ever tried to awkwardly load a bulky child seat or strap a squirming toddler in while parked in a tight grocery store spot, those 90-degree doors are a total lifesaver. You aren't contorting your spine just to get the kid buckled.
And the Forester also respects your independence when you inevitably get a flat tire on a road trip.
Yes, because every single trim of the Forester, even the hybrid model, gives you a real, physical, compact spare tire securely mounted under the rear cargo floor.
Which is huge. Hyundai, on the other hand, aggressively cuts costs on the Tucson hybrid by leaving you stranded with a cheap mobility kit. They give you a can of chemical sealant and a weak air compressor. If you get a sidewall blowout on a dark highway or a slash the sealant cannot plug, that kit is utterly useless. You were just waiting hours for a tow truck.
Right. Well, it is time to issue the final verdicts on these two, because you can't just pick based on styling here. You have to buy based on geography, your budget, and the harsh mechanic reality of actually maintaining them.
Let's start with the Subaru Forester. The verdict here is strictly conditional. You should only buy it if you live in the snowbelt, or if you regularly tackle dirt roads where that 8.7 inches of ground clearance and the symmetrical all-wheel drive are actually required to get to work.
And you absolutely must buy the premium trim. It is the financial and technical sweet spot. It gives you the heated seats, the X mode, and the alloy wheels without pushing you into luxury pricing. Avoid the base trim entirely. It's just a stripped-out decoy meant to trick budget shoppers.
But only buy the Forester if you are highly disciplined. If you're not willing to do strict 5,000-mile synthetic oil changes to protect that boxer engine, and you aren't going to demand those expensive CVT fluid flushes, this car will ruthlessly punish your bank account.
Now, as for the Hyundai Tucson, buy it if you're an urban or suburban driver who values a traditional, reliable 8-speed automatic transmission, free remote start for life, and a dual-injection engine that actively cleans its own intake valves.
But what's the golden rule at the dealership for the Tucson?
Never, ever pay MSRP for a Tucson. Demand a steep dealer discount up front to offset that brutal first-year depreciation drop we talked about. Let the dealer take the financial hit, not you. And before you sign a single document, call your insurance agent.
Yes, check those rates.
You have to check your localized premium to see if you are getting unfairly penalized for the brand's theft history. If the premium is absurd, walk away.
Absolutely. But before you lock yourself into a 72-month loan on either of these crossovers, I want you to consider one deeply unsettling fact. Both the Tucson and the Forester rely entirely on 4G LTE cellular networks for their companion apps, remote start functions, and emergency SOS features.
Right. This is the ticking clock nobody mentions in the finance office. What happens in a few years when the major telecom companies inevitably shut down those aging 4G networks to make room for 6G? I mean, we already saw this happen when 3G was phased out and bricked millions of older cars.
The cellular modem inside your car goes permanently dark. Your high-tech connected dashboard becomes an unupdatable brick. You will lose the safety and convenience features you are still actively paying off.
Exactly. Keep your guard up, protect your wallet, and whatever you do, do not let the finance office sell you a subscription to your own car.